And so now I'm very happy to introduce our second speaker, which is Dr. Eriberto Eulisse, that you already listened to. And Dr. Eulisse works at the University of Ca' Foscari of Venice as the coordinator of the UNESCO chair in Venice. He is the executive director, as many of you know, of the Global Network of Water Museums, which is a flagship initiative of UNESCO Intergovernmental Hydrological Program. And Eriberto, after graduating at the University of Bologna, specialized in museography and anthropology at the University of Norwich in UK. He worked as project officer for the EU Commission and as curator of the Ethnographic Museum of Trento in the Italian Alps. His work on water-related heritage was awarded the Innovation Award in 2016 at the 29th World Canals Conference of Scotland. So today, Eriberto will speak about exploring the extended museum of Venice's water heritage through digital tours and web platforms. Thank you, Eriberto. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Sara. Thank you very much. Also to Professor Vallerani, because he facilitated also my presentation concerning some basic concepts I would like to share with you. As you will see, my contribution is very much linked to the one of Professor Vallerani, although as you will notice, my approach is more project-oriented. So maybe for water museums and people working in water museums is maybe easier to pick up some ideas, approaches, or methodologies to transform into specific project. I will explain, I will tell you about our experience, which is very much rooted in the same department where Professor Vallerani has been teaching for many years. We have been working side by side in different projects. And this approach, I think, could be a source of inspiration for you, for the many different water heritage you are managing and dealing with in different countries, from Canada to Burkina Faso. Of course, you have different geographical and geohistorical context, but at the same time, you can exploit some of the findings of this project that have been developed during the last 6 or 7 years. So it's again, there are different layers that has been built step by step. And I would like to share with you, because I think that for water museums, it's interesting to understand how a digital tour can be used, how a digital tour can be created. So after a short introduction on Venice's inland waterways, I will focus my attention indeed on digital tours, digital itineraries that you can create as tools to promote responsible tourism. I will focus then on a more specific methodological part, how you can create a digital tour using an open source web platform. And finally, we will conclude with this concept of extended museum. What is an extended museum? And how can we share and promote the idea of having an extended museum in your country, in your region, with the water heritage you are trying to promote. So, focusing on the geohistorical context, I would like to stress the concept of Venices, the plural, not only one Venice, but Venices. In Italian, we say de Venezie, which is a plural indeed, not only referring to the small island of Venice, but to its lagoon and even to a larger territory. Also, with the concept of inland waterways, as you will see, we are not going to focus very much on the Venice that everyone knows, but on the inland territory, and will take into consideration both rivers and artificial canals. So the concept of waterways, even if you are not familiar with this concept, includes both rivers as natural water corridors, and at the same time artificial interventions with the canals. The concept of waterways include these two aspects. And today we are going to focus indeed not very much on the Venice that everyone knows, which is on the left part of the screen, but on this inland water heritage, what we can call the silent and forgotten Venices. Everyone, all tourism would like to go and visit Venice, which is an outstanding beauty, but at the same time, there is this silent and forgotten waterscape, which is inland, and which includes also astonishing, beautiful architectures built by Palladio. As you can see, here we are on an architectural heritage built along waterways. And I will refer into my presentation to all water heritage linked to the waterways. Here we cannot make a clear distinction if you are talking about rivers or artificial canals. What we can see from this picture is the result of centuries-old interventions. And so the concept of waterway, as stressed by Professor Vallerani, includes all of them. Through this map, you can also see the different characters of these rivers. The ones with the more meanders that you can see here in the main part of the map are the so-called Resurgence Rivers, which spring from the plain, basically. We have a second typology of rivers close to the Venice Lagoon, which are the Alpine rivers, which cross from, let's say here, the north is on the left, but they cross from north towards southeast, this plain. So the big rivers that you can see here are the Alpine rivers. At the same time, you can see there are some straight lines, which are artificial canals. And this inland waterways heritage is centered around the island of Venice, that you can see here in pink at the very center. So waterways are multifunctional systems, have been built for centuries, especially artificial canals, to facilitate navigation, to foster trade. At the same time, the construction of artificial canal implies an important water knowledge. So to control the levels of artificial canals and rivers at the same time, there is a very old management knowledge that is needed to control the levels of water, to enable not only navigation, but also irrigation, for example, and also proto-industrial activities with water mills, forges that have been built for centuries. At the same time, as Professor Vallerani already stressed, there are important aesthetic and scenic values related to waterways and waterscapes. Trying to go to the next slide. And using the definition of Simon Schama, in his book Landscape Memory, we can say that waterway systems are a unique encapsulation of memories and scenarios resulting from the constant interaction between human activity and natural conditions, to the point that they offer one of the most recurrent iconic themes in both landscape painting and literature. This has been already stressed by Professor Vallerani. I invite you to discover more about the water heritage in your country and what you can investigate from paintings, literature, and other sources, including oral sources. Concerning Venice's waterways, we can say that since the Middle Ages, the building of this system enabled the creation of urban centers, important urban centers like Padua, Vicenza, and Treviso. Not only urban centers, but also a very fascinating water heritage made of small river ports, navigation locks, hydraulic artifacts, castles, villas, which still exist and are a unique heritage for tourism and leisure. This is one of the examples of the small river towns built along waterways. This is a straight canal which connects not only the Euganian Hills to the Venice Lagoon, but one of the places from which the production of stones, which are today paving Venice, have been exploited for centuries. This kind of trade used to bring the stones that today are paving Venice from the Euganian Hills, which are located some 50 kilometers far from the Venice Lagoon, through what we can call the liquid roads. The liquid roads, the waterways that we mentioned many times, enabled also the creation of Venice in a sense, and also the famous book of John Ruskin, The Stones of Venice, relates somehow to this history, which is very much related to fresh water. So, together with the most important waterways that have Palladian architecture, there is also a huge minor waterway system, which today is almost forgotten and abandoned. It's a kind of heritage in danger of disappearing. And I think that many of you are maybe dealing with this kind of danger related to water, the water that we have forgotten during the last decades of fast development. And so in order to try to keep the memory not only of tangible heritage, but also of the values, of the emotional side of this sense of place. And here the reference is to this kind of boat bridges that were so typical in our part and that today have completely disappeared. So we have lost completely the memory of this kind of artifacts, boat bridges, apart from this small-scale model, which is today in the River Navigation Museum of Battaglia Terme. We can ask to many young visitors of this museum if they are used to see this kind of waterscapes, but unfortunately they are completely disappeared. So together with the tangible part, there are also intangible aspects related to water heritage. And this is a picture of historical regatta made with the traditional wooden boats in front of the magnificent Palladian architecture of Villa Pisani. These are very important artifacts, but at the same time enable us to try to find new functions to promote our water heritage. In our case, talking about Venice's inland water heritage, the three key concepts we have to consider are protection, public access, and promotion. And there are so many problematics for each of them. Because when we have to protect an extended heritage, we have to deal with the huge problems. When some heritage is difficult to access, again, it's difficult to make any kind of promotion. But at the same time, we, as water museums, we should try to make this heritage more attractive. And to make it more attractive, definitely, responsible tourism is a way to strengthen the possibilities of good, let's say, exploitation of both natural and cultural heritage. So today we have many opportunities to regenerate local economies that are linked to specific water artifacts, water heritage, and some kind of activities made on foot or by bike, by canoe or boat, definitely are a unique opportunity to strengthen our natural and cultural heritage and to deal at the same time with different measures of protection, of promotion, and of access. We can't go into many details what is sustainable. In a sense, we prefer the word responsible tourism versus what we know quite well here in Venice is the mass tourism. The number of people that today is visiting Venice, or at least before the COVID, almost 30 million visitors per year, is becoming a problem for Venice, a problem of sustainability. And our challenge, the challenge for building digital tools for us in the Venice Lagoon, was exactly a way to focus on other possibilities to enjoy water heritage in a more wide area than the city center of Venice, where, as you can see from this picture, sometimes, very often, is difficult to enjoy what is the water heritage of Venice when it's so crowded. So according to the definition of some researchers like Butler and Prideaux, waterways changed their function during the last 100 years or so. From places of labor, they became places of abandonment, places of nostalgia, that could be also the subject of specific studies, and today, places of leisure and tourism. And it is exactly on this dimension that we want to focus now with the building of digital tools that have been developed by Civiltà dell'Acqua International Center, which is a non-profit NGO aimed at building a new culture of water. Our mission is to define a more far-sighted management of water, nature, and the landscape by promoting new holistic and interdisciplinary approaches to face the global water crisis. So the first project that we developed together with the UNESCO is in 2015, and I think explains quite well what we mean by extended museum. In 2015, for the period of 6 months, we built what we call an interactive space, an immersive room at the premises of UNESCO's office here in Venice, not to focus very much on the water heritage of the city of Venice, but of the entire lagoon, which includes 9 municipalities, which includes an extended heritage made by different hydraulic artifacts, by waterways, waterscapes, and itineraries for responsible ecotourism. So we developed this interactive space where visitors could enjoy a virtual experience of knowing all these different kind of heritages, which are located not only in Venice, but in the Venice Lagoon. And somehow this experience is not a way to escape from reality. It was a kind of invitation to make people aware of the different possibilities you have in the entire lagoon, and not only in the island of Venice. So this was the first experience. Then, in a period of 5 years, we developed more than 100 digital tools in the inland Venices waterways. So an area which is even bigger than the one of the Venice Lagoon, what we call the 3 Venices, indeed. And thanks to the funding of different projects, we were able to start the inventory of water heritage. The inventory of water heritage, which is not included in any museum or only in few museums. So we thought it's so difficult to represent such a wide heritage that we took into account geospatial technologies and the use of digital devices with the interactive maps to improve 2 basic aspects. The first is access. Access to what is maybe hidden, forgotten, or inaccessible. And the second, through these digital devices, and especially smartphones, a new way to engage audiences. Everyone today has a smartphone, and the use of interactive maps and these kind of digital devices has really transformed our perception of space and place. So already in 2014, we started to develop specific apps also to try to engage and attract young audiences. Here you can see Venice and the Venice Lagoon, which is at the very center of what are now what you can see with the red, yellow, blue, orange lines, which are some of the main rivers or waterways characterizing the 3, what we call the 3 Venices. We developed during 5 years 4 apps named after the rivers or the waterway systems they relate to: the Tagliamento River in the northern part, the Bacchiglione and the Colli Euganei medieval waterways in the center, and the Po Delta in the southern part. These 4 apps are made by 100 different digital tools that is possible to make by bike, by boat, by horse, by canoe, or simply walking along waterways. Along waterways, we discover an incredible, such a rich heritage. So we started an exercise of mapping and making a kind of inventory of water heritages focusing on waterways. So at the very beginning, only focusing along the waterways, what kind of heritage anyone could find, and trying to link them through different itineraries, digital itineraries. So what we found are, of course, the canals themselves, which doesn't speak if they are not explained. It's difficult sometimes to find a guide. So if you can download through your smartphone an audio guide or an explanation of what you see, what you think is normal, you can discover layers of history, and that these canalized rivers, these straight rivers, are the result of 100 years of interaction between humans and nature. I believe that also in your region and in your country, you have a very rich water history. And through these devices, it's possible to explain and to enable people to be more aware of what they see. In addition to artificial canals, we found different typologies like water mills, hydraulic artifacts that have been used for centuries, and today seems to be normal buildings from outside. So how can we let these buildings speak again about their story? We found also villas and other aristocratic residences built on waterways. that's crucial because all these villas had their main entrance, the so-called water door, towards rivers and not from the opposite part. So the same way in which we approach today these villas is completely different from the one of the past, when the owners of these villas used to get there through waterways. So it's important to reverse the perspective on which we try to see and interpret our water heritage. And villas are a very good example because their main facade is always oriented towards water. Whereas today, usually we approach with by the use of bikes or cars from the opposite side. We could also make an inventory of different farms and vernacular dwellings, which can be met along these waterways, small churches and abbeys, and also trying to reconstruct what were the traditional wooden boats. Only few of them survived until today. Lock systems and what we call hydraulic lifts, which enable the boats to go from upper to lower levels. These are also crucial, important hydraulic structure of the past. Small river ports, many of them almost abandoned, and the reclamation landscape as well. The reclamation landscape is important in the area of Venice, like in the Netherlands, because most of this area is below the sea level, so can be easily flooded. And it is thanks to an incredible effort made by hundreds of people, the so-called cariolanti, that have been working in these areas, that the land could be transformed and be used for agriculture. But what we can see today in a landscape is invisible somehow. So when we see a waterscape, we should also try to avoid the simplification of saying this is a natural waterscape. Very often it is the result of many artificial interventions, and what seems natural very often is cultural, or the mix between the two. As you can see in the lower part, the two figures on the lower part are the so-called fishing valleys, which date back at least to the Roman times, 2000 years ago. And today, if you don't explain to tourists, it could seem a natural waterscape. So audio guides are important because it can give you information while you are exploring or traveling a part of the territory. And also they can include intangible heritage, what we call water stories. Water stories are fundamental because what I can try to convey with my words is completely different from the way in which water was perceived by people that have been sailing along waterways for centuries in the past. So it was important during our research also trying to keep the memory of those people that have been working, the fishermen. Thanks to the survey, we were able to meet the person that you see on the left is Rolando Biasion, who is building the canis, a traditional net of canes to trap eels, and possibly is the last one who is able to build this kind of traditional net. So it's crucial to try to investigate and meet people to understand what kind of water knowledge is still existing in the territory, because it can disappear very quickly. So after this exercise, we put, let's say, icons along some trails, trails. In this case, it's a waterway related to the Tagliamento River. And we could include in this exercise both natural and cultural heritage, both of them. Cultural heritage with the tangible assets. I don't make the list now, but it's what we discovered already, and also intangible assets. So we collected oral histories and memories of boatmen, fishermen, ferrymen, also literary landscape, and different cultural representations can be included digitally. Also postcards. And by the way, in 2016, after the production...
Eriberto, sorry for interrupting you, but the slides are not moving on.
Okay, I can see the slides that are moving on, but...
We are stuck on the hydraulic artifacts mills.
Oh, oops. So what's going on?
Maybe try to stop sharing and retry. Thank you very much.
Let me, sorry. So you are stuck here, eh?
Yes.
Mills, villas, farms, small churches and abbeys, traditional wooden boats, lock systems or hydraulic lifts, small river ports. Can you see the slides now?
Yes, yes, we can see them moving.
Sorry, I was moving and I thought that you could see the same images that I was trying to explain, so you may have missed something, but reclamation landscape and the key actors of the reclamation landscape, different kind of landscape, and the intangible heritage we collected. Rolando Biasion, that I mentioned already, one of the last fishermen that we were able to find. Okay, so after this description of what we made, I would like to share with you a few key steps on how to build a digital itinerary on water heritage. We developed, we refined our methodology thanks to Waterways Explorer, which is a project funded by the European Union, and compared to the previous apps, compared to the apps that we developed in the past, we started to use an open source platform. At least here in Europe, it's quite easy to use easy travel. Maybe in other continents and countries, you have different web platforms, open source platforms. I suggest to investigate how to use this platform, because if you develop a specific app, soon or later, maybe after 3 or 4 years, you have to make maybe an important maintenance or update of the software. And so all the work that you have been developing can disappear very quickly. So we found, we thought that by using Easy Travel, which is open source, so there is no cost to develop your digital itinerary on this open source platform, you have the advantage that it doesn't need to have any update. So it works all the time. It is a kind of alternative tool to the specific app you want to develop, and at the same time is definitely cheaper. Also, Easy Travel, that today has more than 1 million downloads, is important to promote your digital train. Because other people that have downloaded already the application can find your itinerary. We focused on the waterways close to Battaglia Terme in order to try to improve perceptions and also try to develop new ecotourism practices, dealing with many problems. It's not an ideal setting where to develop what we call responsible tourism. There are different problems related to water scarcity or floods, climate change, in other words, also to pollution and garbage, which often doesn't enable to promote any kind of tourism. Also, the loss of biodiversity is a big threat that you have to take into account. Another advantage of using easy travel is the possibility to include oral history with interviews and other media uploaded in the audio guide. So compared to the previous application, Easy Travel enables us to use an audio guide. So tourists don't have to read any text. They simply listen to the guide. And also they can listen directly to the stories we collected. What we couldn't develop in the past because it was too expensive. But Easy Travel has this functionality so that now you can include it. And also we developed some methods to involve the local communities to co-design the digital tours. So this was the new research approach, which in addition to heritage digitalization, what you see on the top, and the production of a number of points of interest, which are related to specific points, a mill, a villa, a water factory along a waterway, we included what is listed here at the bottom. We could include oral stories as multimedia. And so the entire storytelling of the digital application is different. There are 5 different main steps to create a digital tour. General survey is important to begin with. Then you have a tour design. Production and publication is the 3rd step. Dissemination and maintenance. So we are going to go quickly through them. Let's see, the time unfortunately is we are already 7 minutes after 3. The general survey is fundamental in order to try to develop an outline of your digital tour. It is crucial also because thanks to this outline, you must identify what are the main points of interest. More or less, there are from 12 to 20 points for each digital itinerary, or at least this is the ideal solution for the Easy Travel platform. But what we suggest is to make a visit that lasts 2 or 3 hours, no more than that. And before starting to make such a general outline, you must make a thorough survey of the area you want to promote. Then you create a digital map, a storyboard. You can select the contents and the photos and start uploading the points of interest. So all the small icons you see along the trail are the points of interest in which you invite visitors to look at a waterscape, to visit a small museum, or a water mill or other water heritages. So in the Easy Travel platform, you can upload the draft tour in order to make some further field research and refine your itinerary. So you can enrich also at a later stage the different points of interest and publish finally offline in order to make the field monitoring, to check if everything works. You have on the left, you see the list of the different points of interest, which are part of the itinerary. Then when you have published, another important aspect is the dissemination. If you use an open source platform like Easy Travel, the same platform is a fantastic tool for dissemination, because every tourist that is going to visit your town can find easily also your tour. So it's a way of promoting your work and your tour for free, because Easy Travel doesn't have any cost. But of course, another key aspect is to include the partners and stakeholders of your region. When you have published the digital tour, you are not halfway, more than that, but the work is not finished. The maintenance is absolutely important. You have to repeat the field check very often, because there may be gaps. And if your tour doesn't work properly, the feedback or the reaction from the visitors may be quite negative. So you can use statistics also to improve your tour, and definitely it's important to consider the feedback from users. So in the end, that's the layout of the digital itinerary from Easy Travel. You can see from the city of Treviso to the Venice Lagoon, there are 19 points of interest, which are also listed on the left side. Then when you go and start your tour, you don't have to read what is the text of these points of interest, but it is, as I said already, an audio guide. It is thanks to another project that we developed thanks to some European fundings, that we started to involve the youth. And that's another idea for you, to try to involve the schools, the local schools, to build together with them a digital itinerary. It was a very interesting experience for us. In this case, we focused on both builders, craft tourism, the tourism of building wooden boats. Not only gondolas were existing in Venice in the past, but a different kind of wooden boats that no tourists know. And the last shipyards that are working in Venice are this kind of forgotten, hidden heritage we wanted to promote. So we co-designed the itineraries with some young students. We developed during 4 months these itineraries, combining what are very famous tourist attractions in Venice to some hidden places, these boat yards, boat builders that are not well known by tourists. So this combination is, I think, a good, let's say, recipe, the combination of more important historical and artistic aspects with the less notorious one. It's a successful point, at least for our strategy. And also the same way of engaging students to make interviews, to meet these people, which are the protagonists that are about to disappear, and that can give a vision of our watery past, was a way to open, let's say, their knowledge, but also perceptions about the different cultural practices of the past, about the different values, and to transform their attitudes towards water. So I had a short video, but I will skip the video presenting this project that involved young students, just to conclude very quickly by saying that the research that we developed during these 5 years enabled us to create what we call a digital and extended museum. This digital museum is not something that is going to replace reality. It's a kind of book that you can read from home before visiting the region. So it's digital in the sense that it gives more possibility to know about this water story, but it is above all an extended museum, a museum which you must visit in the territory. So the purpose is not to just enjoy the virtual visit, but to invite you to know more the territory. Today, the Water Museum of Venice includes 70 sites with more than 400,000 visitors per year. And in this website, you can also see the different educational activities, digital routes, and water stories we collected during our journey. So each heritage site has a specific relevance, from castles to small museums, river ports. What I mentioned already in the past is here. Not everything, of course. We had to make a selection of the most relevant things. It's not to make just an inventory. This was thought for practical reasons, also to visit and enjoy each of these heritage sites. So when you click on these icons, you have some guidelines on how to get to this place, where to sleep, where can you eat, and also, of course, the description of the same place. So in this sense, by promoting responsible tourism, museums can stimulate social innovation and new values, bridging past and present water knowledge. I would suggest also to take into account this guide. It is a guide for local development, governments, communities, and museums, made by ICOM and OECD, with the title Culture and Local Development, Maximizing the Impact, in which museums are considered one of the key actors to promote this kind of development. So all this strategy and the approach that we developed is also at the origin of the global network of water museums, which today, as many of you know, includes more than 70 water museums worldwide, 30 different states, and with 30 million visitors per year. The project started in Venice in 2017, and next year, in 2022, we hope to celebrate the 5-year anniversary of this important conference that had so many implications for many of us. What you could see, these people are the Tribunal of Waters from Valencia. They are reading the manifesto, so the ethical, let's say, statement of the global network of water museums to build a new water culture. I would like to recall also the fact that in June 2018, it's not 2021, the first resolution of UNESCO endorsed our global network as a flagship initiative of the Intergovernmental Hydrological Program. And I would like to recall also that 3 months ago, there was a new resolution, the number 7 of the 24th Intergovernmental Council meeting, that is asking to the global network to complete a worldwide inventory of water museums. So what we would like to do is not only to make an inventory of water museums, but to try to involve them in common educational activities with this youth contest and award and digital exhibition, The Water We Want. We are starting, we are going to organize now the 3rd edition of the contest. We are starting to involve different water museums to share educational aspects. We are now also launching another initiative, which is this global collaborative digital exhibition titled I Remember Water, through which we want to invite each water museum to send 6 meaningful pictures of their watery past. And I conclude with this slide by saying that also responsible tourism is an important dimension to be investigated. I think that the global network and our website could provide, maybe in 3, 4, or 5 years, also a platform through which your water museum and even your water heritage outside the museum can be promoted, so that people from China or from Canada or other countries can visit in advance what is so precious for us, the water heritage that we are trying to promote.